Hello all, I'm M.R.AshwinPrabhu. I'm a Microsoft integration MVP for the last couple of years, 2015 and 2014. I'm based here in UK. I'm an independent consultant specialized in BizTalk server and services. Before I move on to my demo, last Monday, 18th May 2015, I've done a web session in the topic Logic App and my experiences for Integration Monday web session. Integration Monday is a web sessions run by Integration User Group. As part of my presentation while showing demo, whenever I opened a new blade on my Azure portal, the audio was not clear. I think it's an issue due to my broadband. Apologies for the people who have attended who are not able to hear my voice clearly. So this video, the videos which I'm going to post now, the couple of videos on my demo, is to show the demo which I've done on the Integration Monday, so that the people who have not able to attend or who are not able to clearly hear the audio on that day can able to benefit from these videos. I've divided my demos into two parts. The first part of the demo I'm going to show how to implement request response in Logic App, and also I'm going to show how to enforce role-based access control on Logic App. Role-based access control is a feature from Azure which we can also use in Logic App. I'm going to show how to do that. And in the second part of the demo, on a separate video, I'm going to show how to deploy Logic App from Visual Studio. Microsoft showcased this during the build 2015 on 1st May 2015, just a couple of weeks ago. On the second part of the video, on the second demo, I'm going to show how to deploy Logic App from your Visual Studio. Let's move on to the part 1 of this demo, where I'm going to show how to implement request response in Logic App. In this, I've taken a use case where, let's say, we are going to get an order request message into your Logic App. I'm going to validate whether they received the XML in line with the schema which I've defined, see whether it is a valid message that I've received. If it is a valid order request message, I'm going to transform the order request to a response and return the response as a response back to the request which I've received. If it is an invalid message, I'm going to say, hey, I've received an invalid message, and send it as a response to the request. After this, I'm also going to enforce role-based access control. If you have a member of your team where you want to restrict access to that user, if you just want the user to see the statuses of the Logic Apps, the run instances, or if you just want to see how the Logic App has been implemented without allowing him to edit any of the things in Logic App, you can restrict the user access to the Logic App. I'm going to show how to implement it. Let's move on to the demo. For this implementing this demo, let's move on to my dev mission, the virtual mission. If you log into the new portal, the portal.azure.com, for this Logic App demo, as I said, I'm going to receive a request, an order request message, and receive a response message. So I'm going to use 3 API apps. One, the HTTP listener. The second one, XML validator. The third one, BizTalk transformation service, an API app. First, we have to provision this apps in the API apps in your resource group. To do that, click on New. Go to Web plus Mobiles. Click on Azure Marketplace. You can either search for your interested API apps under Everything, or go under API app, search for the one which you want to provision. In this case, I'm going to provision HTTP listener. Search for this. Click on it. Click on once you get the HTTP listener blade, click on the create blade. Once you get the new API app blade, you have to choose. The first thing we have to give is the name for the HTTP listener. Once you have given the preferred name, choose the service plan. The service plan is something like a container. The container where you want to run your API apps and Logic Apps. It's something like a virtual machine where you want to run your the provisioned API apps and the Logic App. This is for what you pay. You pay for your service plan. So ensure that you have selected the appropriate service plan. If you are doing it for first time, you got to create new. You can give an appropriate name for your app, the app service plan, and then select the appropriate pricing tier. There are few tiers available, starting from free. I've always tried with the standard, which gives me the sufficient the access, sufficient accesses to do my trial and runs and POCs. In this case, I've already created one, so I'm going to select an existing one. If you have more than one created already, this way they will be listed here. So select on the one which you want to use for provisioning this API app. Click on it. For HTTP listener, we want to configure a package settings. Click on this package settings, where you will get one property called send response automatically. The default value is true. This is true because when a request is posted to this HTTP listener, it immediately gives you the response synchronously. In our case, we want to make it false, because once a request has been received, we want to validate the message. If it is valid, we want to transform the message to one format to another and then send the response, which we can do on our own. So for this particular instance, so for this case, we have to make this value as false. Type false and then click OK, and then click create. After a minute or few seconds, you will get an HTTP listener API app provisioned. Once this has been, in this case, I've already created one, so I'm going to reuse the one which I've already created. So I'm going to cancel this. Once you have provisioned the HTTP listener API app, then we got to create another the instance for XML validator. So click XML validator. You'll get the BizTalk XML validator API app. Click on it. Click create. Give a name to it as you did for the HTTP listener, and select the appropriate service plan and then create. You don't need to do any package setting in this case. So once you create it, after a while, after a few seconds, you'll get this provisioned again. So I've already done this in order to save some time. So now we have HTTP listener and BizTalk XML validator BizTalk API app. Now the last one we have to provision here is the transformation service. BizTalk transformation service. So let's type BizTalk. Here you go. Click create. Similar to the other API apps what we have created, create and give a name, select the service plan, click create. Once this, again I've already provisioned this, once this have been created, you will have this under your API apps list. To go to your API apps, click browse, select API app. This will list all the provisioned API app under what you have done. So in this case, I've already created an HTTP listener for our demo purpose, XML validator, the other one the BizTalk transform service. The other ones are which I've already created. So for our purpose, for this particular demo, we wanted this. As I said, I'm going to post an order request message, and I'm going to map this order request to a response if it is in a valid XML file. So for this purpose, I have to create an X schema, and also I have to create a map. So if you have installed Azure BizTalk Services SDK on your 2012 Visual Studio, you can create this project. So as I said, if you have installed BizTalk Azure Services SDK, if you go to new project, under cloud, under BizTalk service, under C#, under BizTalk services, you will have a BizTalk services template. Click on it to create a new project, which I've already done. And then I've created a schema called order request, which is nothing but a simple order request schema with a few elements underneath it. And also I've created an order response schema, a simple order response schema which will have an ACK ID and an order reference. As I said, we want to map the order request to the response. Here is what I do, a simple map which I simply need to populate the order response with an ID as an order reference, and ACK is combination of a couple of fields from the order request to the order response. The intention of this demo is to show how things work in the logic app rather than rather than more importance given to the actual values. You may ask me the question, why should I use BizTalk services template to create a map or a schema? Can't I use on my on-prem Visual Studio to create this BTM map file and a schema? From the schema point of view, yes, you can use any editor. You don't need to have BizTalk services or BizTalk templates installed. Whereas for the maps, for the BizTalk transform service, it requires .trfm file. So that's one of the reasons. That's the reason that I have chosen BizTalk services project. Hence, you need to have BizTalk services SDK installed on your Visual Studio 2012. So with this order request and the map ready, I have to go back to the portal where I have provisioned my APA app. Since I'm going to validate my received message, which is going to be the order request message, you have to provide this schema to the XML validator. So click on the APA app which I've already provisioned. So in this case, the XML validator, the APA app. Once it's loaded, you can see a lens called schema. Click on it, and then you can add the new schema. Click on the add button here where you can upload a new schema. Click on this new upload new schema. Select the schema that you want to upload. In this case, we have to select the order request schema, which I've already done, so I'm not going to do it here. And then click upload. Give an appropriate name. Once you have done that, you will get something like this. So in this case, as you can see, my component has got one schema in it, which is the name which I have given and the file which I have uploaded to this space. So I've given an XML file, I've given a schema file to the XML validator APA app, which will be used to validate this schema against the message which I'm going to post. And then once the validation has happened, if it is successful, if it is a proper XML file conformed to the schema structure which I have uploaded to the XML validator APA app, I have to map the order request to the order response message. For this, we have already provisioned a BizTalk transform services APA app, and we need to upload the map which we created using the Visual Studio 2012 into this APA app. Once you've got the transformation service, the transform service APA app loaded, wait for a while for this component lens to load. I've already uploaded this map. I'm going to show how to upload this. Just it's as simple as you did for the schema. Click on it. You'll have a transform blade. Click on the add button here, where you can simply upload the transform file which we have created here in this Visual Studio. The transform file here is the TRFM file, this one. Once that's been uploaded, click OK. They will be uploaded as shown here. In this case, I've already done it in order to save time. So I'll say it again, the things what we have done. So first we create a provisioned HTTP listener, then the XML validator, then the BizTalk transform service. After that, we have to upload the schema to the XML validator, so that when a message is being posted, the XML validator will validate against the configured schema. And then for the transformation service, we have uploaded the map file. Now it's time to create the logic app. So click on the new button here, the cross button. Click on the web plus mobiles, and you will get the logic app here. Web apps, mobile apps, logic app, APA app are part of the app services which was previewed on 28th of April 2015. So logic app is part of the app services. When you click on it, you will create one. If you are doing it for first time, you will not get it here. Otherwise, if you have already done it, for an easier access, you can get it here. So click on any of this logic app icon, either here, give an appropriate name, select the service plan, the appropriate service plan which you want this logic app to run under, and ensure the resource group is same as the other the APA apps which we have created. So something like this you can give. Click create. After close to a minute, you will get an logic app instance created, which I've already done in order to save time. Let me open the one which I've already created. I've created a logic app named request REQRES9. Click on it. You'll get this bed. Click either here or here, anywhere, to open the designer place where you can, using the graphical model, you can define your workflow engine for your process. So in this case, I'm going to receive a message. I'm going to using an HTTP. So I'm going to click on the HTTP listener which I've already provisioned. So this is the API apps which I have configured under my existing resource group. As you can see here, this is the resource. This is the name of the resource group. I've provisioned all these API apps. So when I clicked on the HTTP listener, the API app is loaded here. Click on this arrow mark. You have to choose a trigger. You have to choose a trigger. When you have clicked or added HTTP listener for first time into the logic app designer, you will only get this receive HTTP request option. Click on it. So as I said, I'm going to receive a message which is posted as an HTTP post. Select the method here as post for this case and click on this three dots for you to give the relative URL for this HTTP listener. So I'm going to give something like this, can be anything. It's something like a REST method name. Otherwise, to familiarize with the things what we are familiar know, what we have already done. If you have used HTTP BTS HTTP receive.dll in our on-prem BizTalk, you normally give a filter for if anyone posts a message to the HTTP listener, you will get once you have defined the filter, the messages will be received by the send posts which are configured for that particular filter. Something like this. So click on this. Click the green tick box. Once you've done this, as you can see here, you have this. This is the output of this output structure of this HTTP listener. So the request ID, content, these are the output structures which we can use on the subsequent actions on your logic app. So once I've received your message through the HTTP post, as I said, I'm going to validate the message. So click on the BizTalk XML validator API app which I've already provisioned. When you click on it, it will be loaded here. So notice things here that this API app is loaded after the HTTP listener. I'm going to show you. I'm going to say how these actions are positioned in the logic app designer. Click on this arrow mark. Click the validate XML message. That's the only option you will be getting here, and then click on this button to give an input XML for this XML. As you can see here, you have two options here. You just have two options. Doesn't mean that you are restricted to only two options. These two options are based on the output structure of his preceding action. In this case, the HTTP listener. The content is nothing but the content here. The request ID is nothing but the request ID here. Let's say for an instance that you want to do something with the header. So you can still do that. To access that, a simple idea is click on the request ID, something which is already there. If you go to the end, you'll have the request ID as the property name. Instead, you can give an header. So it's not that you are only restricted to the properties which are listed here when you click this button. You can also access the other. So that's why clicking on this button to view the complete list of body structure, the output structure of the body, is always helpful. In our example, since I want to provide an input XML which is going to be the content of what I've received through HTTP listener, which is already there when I clicked on this button. So click content button and click OK. The green tick box. Again, this is the output structure for this BizTalk XML validator API app. So I've received a message. I'm validating the message using the XML validator, for which I've already given a schema while provisioning while configuring the XML validator. Once, if it is valid, as I said, I'm going to transform the order request. Order request is the schema which is already configured in the XML validator to validate against the received message. I'm going to transform the order request to the order response. I need to have the transformation service. So click on the transformation service here, which I've already provisioned. Click on this arrow mark. Click the transform button. As you can see here, the input XML, I'm going to provide the input XML here, input XML for the transformation service. Click on this button. Now, as you can see, there are more options listed as we than what we saw in the XML validator, because these two are the values from the first HTTP listener action. The other three are the values from the BizTalk XML validator action. So when you have the third, a third action, you will get the properties and output properties of its preceding actions. So in this case, I have to provide the input XML for this transform service. The input XML is going to be nothing but the content what I've received from the trigger. If you see this, the triggers outputs is the output from this action. Body refers to this value here. And if you go to the end, is the content which refers to this, which is going to be the content of what I've received as part of the HTTP post. I'm going to input this. I'm going to transform this by providing this as the input. But as I said, when I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this only if the received XML isn't valid. So for this, I have to add a condition. Click on this button, the three dots here. You have few options here as they are self-explanatory. Click on this to delete the action. For our purpose, we have to add a condition. So click on this to add a condition. Here you can define a condition. What I'm going to define is, I'm going to say, see whether the result of the XML validator is true. If it is true, means if the received XML is a valid XML, then apply this transformation service. For this, you can apply a condition, a function. Equals is going to take two parameters. The first parameter is going to be the body of XML validator. This refers to this, and I'm going to access this value. So dot result. And the second parameter is going to be a Boolean value. So this is a string literal, so I have to convert this, typecast this value into a Boolean. That's it. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to reuse it again. So what this expression says is, see whether the content, the output, the result of the XML validator is, the output of the result of the XML validator is true. If so, then execute this BizTalk transform service API action. Click on this. If it is true, what do I need? I need to send the response. So click on the HTTP listener again. As you can see, I'll close the other blade for better view space. Minimize this. Click on this button. Now you can see that this HTTP listener only lists me the send HTTP response option. As I showed before, when I click the HTTP listener, you add only the request option. When you click the second one, the Logic Apps workflow engine automatically decides I've already received a request. So the only option that I can do with this is and response. So it automatically gives you this option. Click on this. I'm going to send a response. So I have to configure three parameters. In this case, request ID is nothing but a correlation ID to the request what you have received. So click on it. As you can see here, these two corresponds to the first values from the first the API app, which is the HTTP listener. These three from the XML validator, and this one is from the transformation service. So in this case, click on the request ID, which is going to act as the correlation ID in this case. I'm going to send the response to the same request ID which I've received. The content, what's going to be the content? The content is going to be the output of my transformation service. So click on the transform option here. And then the status, I'm going to send status 200, which is nothing but the HTTP 200. Click OK. Now we have an HTTP listener which receives the posted message. I'm going to, here I will be validating the received message against the configured schema. If it is valued based on this condition, apply this transformation service. The output will be given as a response to the HTTP listener. As I've showed, yes, this is the happy scenario. Things are, the posted message is valid. Yes, I will apply the transformation and respond back. If it is an invalid case, I'll have to send an invalid message. Click on the button again. As you can see, the icon, the HTTP listener action has gone to the rightmost corner. Click on this button. Send response again. I have to choose for the request ID the same correlation ID, the request ID, the content. I'm going to choose, I'm going to say, I'm going to pass the same value what I've received, but I'm going to append it with a value invalid. So I'm going to use another function called concat, which will get number of parameters to concatenate. If you click on this one, this will get me a template structure for the content. So I'm going to use concat. I'm going to append invalid as a word, as a string to the actual content I received from the trigger. And then here I'm going to say 200. Here I've used the concat function. As you can see, in this expression I've used two methods. One is concat, the other one is trigger. Trigger is also a function. But when you see the function syntaxes, they always say they always start with append, the @ sign. You don't need to know, so when you start actually creating the expressions, you'll get into the behavior of giving @ to the every function. So in this case, or for expression, you only need to give @ only for the first method or first function, not to the subsequent ones. So if you are going to use multiple methods within an expression, only the first one should have @ sign, not the others. Just a tip. So in this case, I'm going to send a response for this correlation ID, request ID. I'm going to append the word invalid to the actual the content what I've received. The status is still going to be 200. You can make it as 500. But when should I want this action to execute? Only if the XML validation is false. So for that purpose, I have to add a condition here. Click on this, add a condition. I'm going to paste the condition which I've already used. Instead of true, if the XML validation is false, I need to execute this action. Click on it. See what happened. When you clicked on it, this API app positioned itself next or below the transformation service. So as you can see here, this is the happy scenario. If the validation is success, this will execute. If the invalidation is false, this will execute. If you can see the sequence in which the action position itself actually based on three conditions. They call it as implicit implicit positioning, where the action, for in this case, I'll zoom it for a better view. In this case of the XML validator, I've given the input XML to be the content of the HTTP listener, the trigger. By defining this expression, I'm implicitly defining a condition for this action to position after this trigger. The other one is based on the expression. While providing a condition on the expression, you can also restrict the positioning of the API app. Something like what we have used here in the BizTalk transform service and the HTTP service. In the condition we have said, if the result of the XML validator is true, execute this action. If it is false, execute this action. So for this to execute, it depends on the execution of the XML validator. Hence, these API apps positioned itself after the XML validator. The third option is explicitly happening on its own. If you have two API apps, if you have two API actions, if they don't have any conditions defined between them, they position itself from left to right. So the first one will be on the left, and the second one, or the subsequent action that you place which don't have any conditions or relation between them, will be positioned from left to right. Though they are positioned from left to right, they don't execute from left to right, they execute in parallel. That's the difference here. So if you are, we are familiarized with the execution of the shapes in orchestration, where we position generally from top to bottom. For parallel, yes, it is different, parallel shape. Generally, it is from top to bottom. Here, it is positioned based on the conditions or based on the functions or the expressions what you have written. So yes, we have defined a sequence here, a workflow here, a flow here for our business process. Click on the save button. Once it's been saved, we can use the HTTP to post a message. I'm going to use the Postman. You can use anything which you are familiar with. We have just given a relative URL here. Remember, we just given relative URL as /reqres9. But for posting the message with the URL tree, the method, the URL, the relative URL, we need to have the absolute URL to post a message to this logic app. How to get the absolute URL? Go to the HTTP listener API app which we provisioned. So you can go either from the shortcut which is there, otherwise go to the browse API app and choose the one which you have provisioned. Click on the host lens. Wait for the API app blade to load. Wait for the essential to load. You can either click on it. This is the absolute URL for the HTTP listener what we have provisioned. Click on it or click on this to copy. Otherwise, click browse. Take this URL, go to the Postman. Let us do it from this start. I'm going to post a message to this URL, to this relative URL which we gave in the HTTP listener. This is the method, okay, which I've already have. Go to the, this is an XML instance, an instance of the XML schema which I've already created. Give the body, send the message. This will send the message to the logic apps where it will be validated. If it is a valid message, it will map the message against the map which you have provisioned in XML BizTalk transform services, and then we should get the response back. Wait for a few minutes or less than a minute, hopefully. See whether the post is actually happening. You can go to the logic apps. So as you can see here, after a while you'll get the response back. We have posted the order request message, it is in valid XML file, so it's got validated by the XML validator and then converted into another order response format by the BizTalk transform service. So now let's see that what happens if we give an invalid XML. I'm going to give an invalid, make the XML valid invalid by just making like this. Click a send button. After a while, you should get the exact response, the request message along with the word invalid appended to it, as you can see here. Now we'll go back to the actual instance, the portal, to see the status, the history of the statuses. Click on the logic app, This is the history blade, the status blade, where you can see the status of the each instance run of the logic app. Click on the first one where we have sent a valid message. As you can see here, the message was first validated and then transformed from one format to another, and it was then returned as a response back. The one which is skipped here is the other condition, the false condition. What if the received XML file is invalid? Click on the latest one, the last run, where we have posted an invalid message. As you can see, we try to see whether it is a valid message. That action is succeed, but the output of that action is false. Hence, we were not able to send the map the response request to the response. We were not able to get the actual the response message, but we got an invalid message appended to the actual received message. This is how you can see the status run of each logic app instance. If you click on each of the action, you can see the input and the output messages that each of the actions received. This gives the detailed tracking that you need to see the status of your messages. So this is what the demo is all about. The first demo is about, where we have created an HTTP listener through which we received an HTTP post. The message got validated by the BizTalk XML validator API app. Then we used the BizTalk transform service to map the message to the request to the response, and then we transform the message, and then if it is invalid, we returned a response, the actual response message, the order response message. Otherwise, the failure response message. Fine. Now we have created this. As I said, now I'm now going to show you how to implement the role-based access control. The role-based access control is a feature that comes as part of the Azure, which is not separately created for the logic app. Since logic app is part of the Azure, we get the features of the Azure. The tracking information, what I've showed a few minutes ago, was also part of the Azure. Since logic app was built on top of on the Azure services, on top of the Azure engine, we get the features which were part of the Azure also on the logic app. So I'm going to show you the role-based access control. In the role-based access control, let's say you have a team of member, and if you want to give one member of the team a read access, who can only see the status, the run history, as we can see here. And if you want, you can see the flow, how the logic has been defined. But we should not allow him to edit any of the logic app and its expressions. As you can see, I'm the author. I have the buttons here where I can edit and then save it. So let me log off from my. Before I log off, let me give another member of my team an access, a read access. Go to the browse. Either click on everything. I'll show you the right way, the things what you see for the first time, and then click on the subscriptions. Click on the subscriptions. This will load the subscription for you, the subscription which you are entitled to. Let me close and open this again. This is the subscription for the current logged in user. Click on the roles here. As you can see, there are a list of roles that you can assign a particular user to. Click on the read role here, for which we want to assign a group and the user. In this case, I've already assigned one. So let me do it from scratch. So let me remove this user and re-add it again. So click on the role now. So there are no users assigned. Click here and click the user. Give the users the subscription to whom you want to give the read access. For this subscription of mine, which is live.com, I'm going to give a read access. Click and select this. This will appear here after it's been successful. Now if I log off from my current account, if another user logs in, now I'm going to log in as the live account. I have two subscriptions. This was a subscription where I've created the logic app, and this is the one which I'm going to log in and see the access, the logic app where I've been given the read access. In the home page of the Azure portal, click here and go to the user who have given you the access. You can now see two default directories. This is the one which is for the user who has logged in. This is the one to whom who has given me the read access. Click on it. Now you have logged in and you can see the API apps and the logic apps which were created under the other user. Now I can see all the logic apps which were created by the other user. The one which we created was this. Click on it. Go to the triggers and action. As you can see now, immediately you can see the actions, the other shapes, but you can't see the save button, the other buttons which we were getting when I was logged in as the other user. Now I can able to see the logic app and its flow. I can also see the status, but I can't do anything. Now I am just a reader. This is the feature of the role-based access. As you can see, the one basic improvement what we can immediately see is once I logged in into this user, I can able to see all the logic app created under this user. Maybe in future we may get a feature where I hope to get this option. Maybe in future that we may get an option where a fine-grained access level restrictions can be given. Something like for this particular user, I can choose the API apps and the logic apps which I want to give. Something like that maybe we can expect. That's just my hope. Thanks for watching this demo, the first part of the demo, where we have shown a use case using the HTTP listener, where I've implemented the request response pattern, and also I've shown the role-based access control. In the second part of the demo, I'm going to show you the how to deploy the Visual Basic. So how to deploy the logic app from your Visual Basic, which will be seen in the second part of the demo. Thanks for watching. Thank you. Cheers.